have our audience here, and let me start, my dear colleagues. Добрий день, шановні колеги. Thank you that this session will be recorded, but because a lot of my colleagues said, yeah, we would like to be, but we are now busy. We would see later. So that means that now we are talking to more than 30 people, or even more and more coming, but also we will have afterwards more audience. Багато колег написали, що не можуть зараз, але, будь ласка, запис дуже потрібний, хочемо подивитися. So today we are welcoming our absolutely, so we're so lucky to have Dominic Cooper here in Ukraine. I would say online, but in Ukraine. Сьогодні ми дуже просто нам пощастило, що Домінік Купер є сьогодні в Україні, виступає для нашої аудиторії. He's very engaged person. He was working with 67 countries. You can imagine, 67 countries. Тобто він тільки сказав, що він працював для 67 країн. Yeah, he's from America. Because of this time change and time difference, it's difficult to catch him, let's say, in our area. But he's in France now, and that's why we're lucky that he has time for us. І він в Америці, різниця з часом, це майже неможливо його мати за гостя в Україні, але він зараз у Франції і знайшов для нас час. So thank you very much, first of all, Dominique for your willingness to help us, because your knowledge is incredibly valuable and for us very new. Just to feel free to tell what you want to tell. To understand what we now know about behavioral-based safety, it's about, we had some training, some of our colleagues had some training from 2000, it's latest. But then, last 20 years, of course, has behavioral-based safety was developed, and we don't have this information. So we would be really grateful if you give us modern overview, insights. What is it nowadays? Я попросила Домініка, сказала, що в нас, що ми знаємо по поведінковій безпеці, деякі з нас отримали навчання в 2000-х роках, 1900-2000 початок. Це означає, що в нас вони вже застарілі, тобто вона ж весь час рухається. І от я попросила саме говорити про те, що є сучасною поведінковою безпекою, що лежить в основі. So thank you. I keep silence, and the floor is yours, Dominic.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be here to try and help Ukraine out, just in a small way. I am actually a supporter of Ukraine, so I guess for the first time in my life I've put my politics out in public. But anyway, good luck to you all. So behavior-based safety, I got into doing this for my PhD. So my background as a construction worker came in very handy, because I was trying to prove that behavioral safety works on construction sites. So we had a big project. It was paid for by our regulator, the British regulator, the Health and Safety Executive. And we spent 2 years trying different configurations, different ways of doing behavioral safety, building on what the Americans had done in the oil and gas industry, in chemical plants, and so on. And we came to different things. We got different results, and I got my PhD from it. And at the time in England, it was new. It wasn't on the agenda. Nobody knew what it was. So I was asked to go into a cellophane factory. So there was hot acid baths, there was moving machinery, all sorts of things. Massive. It's a very old plant built in the 1920s, 1930s. But we made it work there, and we reduced their lost time injuries by 82% and their minor injuries by 52% inside 9 months, 1 year. And then we went into steel plants, and then we went into chemical plants, and then refineries, and I don't know, it just expanded, it evolved. But everywhere we went, we made it work. So I want to take you through the different ways of doing this, if I can, and the results. And I did an analysis in 2009, so I can present some of the results of that. So behavioral safety changes every so often, but as we go through, what is it? I'm not so concerned. I'm a psychologist. My background in training, my degrees is psychology, industrial psychology. And I also have this work background where I was in the construction industry. And I kind of put the two together. So I'm not concerned so much about behaviorism. There's theories of behaviorism, which is Pavlov and his dogs associated learning, and then there's Skinner with operant conditioning and all of those kind of things. Not interested. What I am interested in is a method. How do I apply a method that enables me to engage the workforce, enables me to engage management and leadership, and create some kind of partnership where everybody has got the same goal as to improve safety and prevent people being hurt. And so rather than the theoretical, I'm going to be focusing mostly on the practical. So for me, behavior-based safety, or behavioral safety, as we say in England, behavioral-based safety is an American term for the same thing. For me, it sits at the crossroads, this junction, this overlap where people, the working environment, the operational systems and processes, and the culture of the company all intersect, where they all work. Because all four of those things impact on what people do. They all influence what people do. Other people influence what people do. The working environment, the physical infrastructure, the machinery, and that's being used also has an influence on what people do, how it's designed, how it's configured, how it's put together. The operational systems, and you might know those as rules and procedures and those kind of things, that if this occurs, do this. So you make your systems operate as they're intended. And then behind all of that, there's the culture. I mean, we have different cultures. So if you look at, I don't know, I was going to say Chernobyl, but you have Chernobyl. There was the Chernobyl incident. What was the culture in there? So there was a lot of pressure being applied on people, and production was put before safety in that particular instance. And I see that right across the board in all different industries and different places, different countries. So all of those things come into being. So for me, it's about how can I recognize that all of those things come together, and how can I influence them to make them better, to make it work for people without getting hurt. So there's four approaches, or there has been four approaches to behavioral safety. The very first ones were top down. Supervisors were trained to observe and give people feedback, recognition, reinforcers, or whatever, which they applied to hourly workers. They did behavioral safety at the workers. They didn't do it with the workers. Fundamental difference. So that worked to a certain degree, but it got rejected by the unions in the West and all the rest of it. They said, no, 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 no. You're giving us all the blame, but you're not fixing the systems and the procedures and the work environment. So it took about 15 years, and then we came to this bottom-up approach. So we gave the process to the employees, and we said to the employees, you develop the checklists, you decide which behaviors are important, you monitor your colleagues, you give your colleagues feedback. and it worked very well. And some of the places I've been in, they've operated that kind of system for 20, 30 years, and it still delivers. And they fix lots of things in the environment. They change the culture. It works pretty well, but it leaves out leadership and management. So management and the leadership think they're excluded. They don't have to do anything. Well, when you get everyone down to this all-inclusive, this create this safety partnership between the leadership and the employees, then you get everything that you want. So I was on a project in the Middle East, in Qatar, building LNG trains, processing trains, and we did 2 years of data collection and 2 years of implementing the process. There were 47,000 people on that site. From the results and everything we got, we did some meta-analysis and some statistics, and we calculated the impact of leadership on employees' behavior was as high as 82%. It's a massive, massive impact. And we've done this in different refineries and different metal companies and so on. We see the same kind of thing. So if we can get both sides to work together as one, then you can do everything and anything. And we've seen it in the result that we get. So, but it's taken roughly 45 years or 30 to 45 years to get from the top down to the partnership. This other one, which is self-managed, is very interesting. It's been there all the way through. So I first came across it in Canada with the loggers. They're felling trees, and obviously when you're chopping down trees, there's danger. You've got what do you call them? Chainsaws. So they're using chainsaws, they're using axes. There's lots of risk. So, but they're also very highly independent people. They don't like being told what to do. They don't like someone telling them that their behavior is unsafe or whatever. So we said to them, okay, that's fine. Choose 5 behaviors you think that's going to make you safer. You monitor them. And it's based on the principle that self-generated feedback is the most powerful form of feedback. So we all have little voices in our head when we do things, and it says, well, stop, hang on, that's unsafe. Don't do that. Do this. Okay, so I pick up stuff off the floor in the supermarket and people think I'm weird. But I just think that some lady who's pregnant could slip on it and she falls over and she could lose the baby. So for me, it's just, I just do it. But it's that little voice in my head. Oh, that's not right. Or that's not right. So we use that process for the self-managed people. If that's what they want to do, make it work. It's just helping direct them to what's the key behaviors. And when I was teaching at the university, I was a professor of safety and I was a professor of organizational psychology. Then I would say to my students when I was teaching them this, put 5 behaviors down on here that's going to help you stay safe, whether it's driving, whether it's going out in the town or whatever. And after one class, a week later, one of the guys came up to me and said, you saved my life. I said, I didn't do anything. What did I do? And he says, well, I put 5 behaviors on at night. I managed traffic for construction on highways. And I looked at everything and I made it safe and I put all these things on the checklist and it's kept me alive because a vehicle crashed and so on and so forth. So I said, well done, you know. But for me, it shows the power. If you show people what they can do and what to focus on, then they can improve their own circumstance. So all of these methods have been tried. The bottom-up approach works best. The all-in is a very good process. Sorry, the safety partnership works best, but it's built on the top 2 joining together. And then the self-managed process runs through it. There's other processes now where, so we're in a very major pharmaceutical company in America and they're worldwide. And we've got the guys there, they do 2 observations a week, everybody. Anyway, and it could be the observation could take 30 seconds. It's just you see somebody's got all of their protective equipment on or they're doing the job safely. And as you walk past, you go, hey guys, well done. Really pleased to see you working safely. Thank you. And you move on. Or it could be I'll go up to them and I'll have a conversation and say, well, how can we make this safer here? and they've been doing it for years. And now their problem now is everyone's forgotten how to do a root cause analysis because they're not having accidents. It's so you have to keep, as you fix things, and you must return back to some of the areas where, oh, hang on, you're losing your skills. So you have to maintain the skills. So the assumptions behind behavior-based safety or behavioral safety. Behavior is often the final trigger for an incident or an injury. So we know from safety culture research that a lot of incidents will occur back up at the leadership level, the senior management level. They'll make a decision. So the Deepwater Horizon, there was a decision made by the stock exchange to take money and cost out of BP at the time. So they were asked to take out $3 billion over 3 years. But BP, being BP, says, oh, we can do that in 1 year. So the drill side went to the drilling folks and says, you've got to strip costs. You've got to do it. We got 1 year to get rid of all of this cost. So everybody was trying to be innovative. They built the well based on what equipment they had left in the shed, if you like. They didn't order. They just, what do we got? Oh, we can make this work. We can make that work. They put the well together. Over the 2 years of doing various things, it didn't quite work out, but they done things, they skimped and so on. But it was the behavior at the very end that then led to the failure of the cementing. It was the failure of the leadership, and it was the failure, more than anything, it was the failure of the leadership. But there were other things going on, the maintenance failures and so on. So behavior was that final trigger, and it overcame the defenses. We know that in most facilities, there's a very small proportion of behaviors that's implicated in most of the incidents. So, for example, I was in a cellophane factory, and there was a lot of the guys, they were cutting their hands. So they have this, it's like a spindle, two wagon wheels on a spindle, and on the spindle, they put a film core. And they use knives, and the knives are circular. They're circular discs, and they're very, very, very sharp. If you just touch them, you will cut your hand open. But they have 5, 6, 7, or 8 of these knives on this bar because they have to cut the film cores to different sizes. So when we were looking at it, we're saying to them, well, why don't you just move all of the discs over to the right so they're out of the way when you're cutting all of it? Well, we don't have time. Well, you must have time. And look, you're all cutting yourself. You use time when you cut yourself. Why can't we just do that? So we did that, and then that problem went away. So it's looking at what are the behaviors, which are actually most of the ones that you want to get to are within your near miss records. Your near miss, you've had a near miss, you nearly hurt somebody, or they're in your actual incident records. And when I did the cellophane job, we didn't have computers in those days. I just got the records and I put them on a table, and I would make piles. So I'd get all the records for one department, and I'd put them over here. And then there I would say, well, are these hand injuries? Are these head injuries? These leg injuries? What type of injuries are they? And you get different size piles, and it tells you which processes are causing you the problems. It tells you what's the particular behaviors that you need to focus on to get them under control. So if you tackle those behaviors, logic says that incidents will go down that's related to them. We also know that if we talk with people and we give them feedback about how they're doing, they respond. So if you think of our Olympic athletes, Ukraine's got some great sportsmen. So when you think of how they operate, they do certain things. So they run, they put their feet in the things if they're going to be running and sprinting, and they have a coach who'll tell them, if you put your foot this way and you put your hands this way, you can get out the blocks faster. And that's feedback. And we can use that same principle within safety. So where we do the observations and we have conversations, we always have a conversation. If you haven't had a conversation, you have not had an observation. The two always go together. And you can say to the guys, well done, or you can say, well, hey, you're safe at this, you're safe at that, but where else do we think we can be safer? And because I'm kind of look at safety in the round. So one of the best things that I ever came across was Chevron's energy wheel. And you can download the document. It's free, but it's based on the old theory. It's the first and second law of thermodynamics. You have a contained energy, so it'll be in a gas cylinder or something like that. And if you get an energy release and the person's in the vicinity, they are going to get hurt. So when I look at an area and I talk with people, I'm looking for where's the sources of energy? Where's the electric? Where's the gravity? Where's the heat? Where's the temperature? Where's all of these things? If there's more than one energy source in an area, then I know that that's a very hazardous area. So I ask them prompt questions from the guys and get them to think about how they could be safer in their work area. And sometimes they get very provocative, and I'll say to the guys, hey guys, which bit of machinery in here is going to kill you this week? And it's a funny question, but they can all point to something in their work area that they know is extremely hazardous, and if they don't treat it with respect, they will get hurt. So it's just a way of identifying. So we're using all of these things that are all coming in to this to create these observations and conversations, as well as having a checklist of behaviors so we know what we want to look at. So then we want to know what causes people to work unsafely. Why is it? What's in the environment that's pushing you to behave unsafely? Isn't it instruction from your supervisor? Is it a piece of equipment? So are the controls and displays so similar that you do things and you can press the wrong button inadvertently by mistake? So we try and fix those as well. We call them corrective actions. So we try and fix all of these as we go. And it's a very powerful little metric. So here's how we would do behavioral safety, a big formal system. Sometimes we do an assessment, sometimes we don't, but we want to gain managerial and workforce support. So we tell them this is what we want to do before we do anything. We try and engage them, workers' engagement. We collectively analyze the issues. Well, what's the behaviors in your department or what you do that cause all of these problems? We then get the guys to agree whether they go on a checklist or not, and that was the focus. And we only maintain the focus on one set of behaviors for roughly 6 months, and then we change. So we're constantly trying to refresh the process and move on to different behaviors. You train people how to observe, and off you go. Then you do a baseline. So the baseline is where you can measure. You can do it for a week, you can do it for two weeks. You just want to know, where are we now? And once you know where you are now, you can go back to the guys and say, hey guys, this is where we're at. Where do you want to get to? How much do you think you can improve? So we're engaging them again. They do the observations and the feedback. If there's things that need modifying in the environment or things need changing, they can do that. But they're constantly monitoring performance over a period of time, and they're reviewing progress and adapting. One of the best things we ever did was introduce weekly meetings. So we did the observations, we put the results into software, we would get the software to analyze the data, just collate it in a usable format, what we did well and what we didn't do so well. And then we would all sit down and discuss that for half an hour every week. Absolute magic when we did that, and the things that came out of that that could be fixed and could be addressed. And the guys saw things changing. And when they see things change, they raised it, they see it change, they get more invested, more involved. And the more workers are involved, the less likely they are to be involved in an accident. So it's very much about employee engagement as well. So what else do we do? So we've got claims of fact going here. We know the design of a process impacts on behavior. So if you observe every day or 2 to 3 times a week, it's going to reduce your injuries much quicker than if you only observe once a week. Okay. Some people say we only want it once a week. It costs too much time for a guy to do the observation, but the impact is much less. We know that if you use verbal feedback at the point of observation, you have that conversation, that if you put your data up on a graph, a visual graphic, if you analyze your data and discuss it, you're going to have a bigger impact than if you only rely on a verbal conversation at the point of observation. So we know from the data that training and feedback reduces incidents more than other methods, but that's only based on one study. We also know that goals and feedback lead to greater behavior change than other methods, and there's 6 or 7 studies there. And then we know participative improvement goals, so getting the guys to tell us how much they want to improve is much more impactful than not having a target, or from just simply telling them you will improve by 50%. And the next slide gives you the data. You can see the data from various studies. So where it says, so for here, observation frequency per observer, daily observations has a bigger impact. So N equals 10 studies. Then 2 to 3 times per week, again, 10 studies, does do it more than once a week or less, of which there were 4 studies. So you can see well, the different impacts of the design, the number of feedback channels used. So that's whether you're using conversations at the point of observation, the graphical feedback charts, the data analysis and the discussion. So we can see there, the more feedback that we use, the channels, the bigger the impact we can have. When we look at the different designs, training and feedback, goal setting and feedback, what was a surprise, and these first 3 we tested this when I was doing my PhD on the construction sites. And we were very surprised that when the training, goal setting and feedback never produced as much change as you expected. We thought that was the Rolls Royce of design. We've got training and we've got goal setting and we're giving the guys feedback. That should give us the best results, but it never did. And now we see, because these are all different studies by different researchers and different companies, it has an effect, but not as big as without combining the two. If you just use feedback only, we can see there's less of an impact, and it's in terms of injury reduction and behavior change, improving the behavior. So we can see that. And then a lot of people say we should use incentives. Doesn't work. And in many cases, an incentive is, well, an insult to the guys, for one, but it also manipulates behavior. Now, I said to you earlier, I'm a scaffolder by trade. I spent 10 years scaffolding. I'm an advanced scaffolder. And I was on a site with 3 of us, and that site had competition and incentives. And it says, if you don't have an accident, you get a ticket, a raffle ticket that goes into this thing, and the winner will get a Volvo car, a brand new car. And we're all poor. So like, hang on, Volvo car, man, that's really good. Let's all try and get this ticket. So we wouldn't report accidents. And one of my friends, he was on a step ladder. He had a 20-foot, what's that, 7-meter tube. And he was up on the ladder and holding it like this, and he fell. And when he fell to the ground off the step ladder, the tube fell down onto his chest. So he injured his chest. And we looked at him and says, you need to go to hospital. So we're saying, well, how can we take you to hospital? Because we've got to go past the security guard on the gate and everything. We're not going to get our ticket for the raffle. So one of the guys says, I got some clippers here. We can cut a hole in the fence. You go and get the car and bring it round the back of the site. We'll cut a hole through the fence. We'll stick him through there, and you can dump him off at the hospital 30 miles away, which is what we did. And all of that was to get a ticket so we could get a Volvo. So the incentives distort the behaviors that you want. Yeah. And I'm being very honest. I was just a scaffolder, you know. It's what happened. So I don't know what that is. Go away. So we need to think about what we're doing. And then again, here you can see at the bottom, participative goal setting has a bigger impact on injury decrease and behavior change than implicit or assigned goals. So we need to understand, we have facts, but do we understand them? So we know that identifying problems, behaviors helps us to identify the context in which they're occurring. So if we do our pile of incidents and we say, look, all of these guys are getting hand injuries, why are they getting hand injuries? Then we can look at the task that they're doing, we can look at the design of it, and we can find out what it is that's driving those behaviors. So we want to fix them. And sometimes people behave just because they choose to behave in a certain way. And you can see it driving. And if you can imagine people driving, you get a red traffic light. It goes red and you're supposed to stop. And how many of us in our lives see people jump the red lights? Or, you know, they just want to get across so they don't have to wait 2 or 3 minutes. And that's a personal choice. The situation can be perfect, but the choice not necessarily so. So we want to try and fix the situation as much as we can, but we recognize people do make choices to behave unsafely. So one of the ways to get round that is to engage employees in safety. Do safety with people, not at people. It's a huge, huge, huge difference. And we know from research that those people who are engaged are 5 times less likely to get hurt than those who aren't engaged, which is huge. So what we do with behavioral safety, we say, which behaviors are important? Can you help us identify them? How much do you want to improve? Having the on-the-spot conversations, help us identify where the hazards are. All of those things are about building ownership and engaging the guys. So, because if the guys own these processes, they work very well. And then we also know at the end, management and safety leadership has a huge impact on what people do. So here's a study that I did back in 2014 or 15, I think it was, when I did this, and I was looking at different leadership styles. So I did a meta-analysis, and the moderate impact is up to an impact treatment effect size of up to about 0.5, and anything over that is a large impact. So we can see from these different types of leadership, transformational leadership is where you set a vision and, hey guys, you know, we got this vision, we want to achieve this, we want to achieve that, and are you along for the ride? Then you got transactional leadership, which is literally transactional. Hey guys, if you do this, I will give you this, and so on. But then you got servant leadership, and servant leadership is this thing that says, hey guys, what can I do to help you do your job more safely? What do you need from me for me to help you? Okay. And when you take that approach, it creates this supportive environment. That supportive environment, one, it leads to safer behavior. Two, it leads to employee engagement. Employee engagement itself leads to safe behavior, but the employee engagement leads to a much bigger incident reduction than from the other forms of leadership. So when you talk to the leadership teams in the place that you might want to do behavioral safety, you might want to say to them, do you think you can go out on the floor and ask the guys, what can I do for you? What do you need from me to help make this all happen? And that's how you're beginning to create this partnership where everyone is beginning to come together and work together as one towards this common goal. And I first came across that in Thailand 20 years ago. And 2 girls were doing their PhD on it, and they were doing it for Chevron, the oil company. And I thought, oh, that's really good. And I went back to the university because I was there during the summer. And I went back to the university. And on the first day of term, I called all my students in to a meeting. And I said to them, hey guys, I want to ask you something. I give you tasks. I ask you to do essays every lecture, 2,000 word essay. I want you to get me citations. I want you to do this and that and the other. So what else do you need from me to make all of that happen? Am I giving you stuff that's too much for you to do? And they all said, we don't have enough books. And I'm saying, what do you mean you don't have enough books? And they said, you give us citations, you tell us this is the material, we go to the library and it's not there. Oh, okay. All right. Thanks for that, guys. And I went down to the library and says, we need these books for all of the students. And they said, we don't have any money. And I said, well, that doesn't make sense. These students are paying to come here. They're giving the university money to study. Why haven't they got any money? Well, you have to ask your boss. Oh, okay. So I went and asked my boss, and I said to him, there's no books in the library. They haven't got any money to buy these books. What should I do? And he said, nothing. Just leave it. They'll manage. And I went, but that's not right. They're paying to come here. Yeah, but we've got to cut costs. And I'm looking at him going, this is wrong. This is just wrong. So the university used to give me a research budget. So I went to the department secretary and I said, how much have I got in my research budget? So she told me I had $15,000. Okay. Can you write me a check for $10,000 for the library? So you can give to the library, transfer the money from my research account to the library, so the librarian can buy the books that the students need. And she looked at me and she says, am I allowed to do that? I said, it's my money, isn't it? She said, yeah. I said, well, just do it. So she did. And 1 week later, my boss called me up to my office, come here. And I went to his office and he says, you embarrass me. And I said, no, you did that yourself. I didn't do anything. I just got the books that the students need. Well, you embarrass me. Everyone knows that you did that yourself. Okay. And he says, here's a check. And he gave me the check, gave me the money back. But my students had got the books they needed. They're safety students. They needed those books. Okay. So, but that's one example of servant leadership, and it works. Those students now, most of them are presidents of safety in very large American companies or vice presidents. And they're working with nanotechnology and all sorts of stuff. I'm really proud of them all, you know. But they follow the same thing. They are servant leaders themselves. So, and I tell you the story just to kind of demonstrate the impact that that can have. Yeah. So it's a very powerful form of leadership. Claims of cause and effect. Okay. So a lot of people say, well, behavioral safety doesn't work. Well, the question has to be, why doesn't it work? And are you implementing it properly would be one of the questions. So, but we know if we focus on specific problem behaviors, they will reduce the associated injuries. If we focus on a limited set of behaviors known to be associated with injuries. So some people tell me behavioral safety doesn't work. You still have process safety disasters. And I say, but are the behaviors that are being looked on, are they process safety behaviors or are they personal injury behaviors? Because if you focus on personal injury behaviors, you will fix personal injury behaviors. If you focus on process safety behaviors, you will fix process safety behaviors. And we've been on ethylene crackers and in the petrochemical industry where we've put both on a checklist and fixed things and got them under control. We know if we use the score, if we collect scores, numbers, so the number of people who this behavior has been done safely, the number of people, the times this behavior has been done unsafely, we use the ratio between them. So it's the number of safes divided by the number of safes plus unsafes. And the product of that is multiplied by 100. And it gives us a percent safe score. And we can use that and we can see the variability. And often the graph will go up and then it slip back and then go up and slip back. But over time, it trends upwards. Okay. So, and you see it everywhere as people get used to it, being able to read the data and so on. And on the project in Qatar, I'm going to show you the results in a minute. But on a project in Qatar, I'd been out of country for a month and one of my colleagues was there, and I'd gone back in, and they said to me, "We need a report to the management team this afternoon." I said, "Okay." And I said, "What do you want the report on?" They says, "We want to know how the process is working and is everything good? Are we good?" Okay. So I looked into the data and I saw that there was a huge potential for somebody to die from lifting operations. Massive opportunity. And I thought, wow, they've really got to get this piece under control. Overall, the project was going very well. And I said to them, okay, look, guys, this is going well, that's going well, we're getting the observers, we've got everything going, but there's something going wrong with your lifting operations. That is a potential for somebody to die. And I got told off very much so by the boss. You're telling me people are going to die on my site? And I'm going, whoa, 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 don't shoot me. I'm just the messenger. The data's telling me something's going wrong there. And there's a possibility, a very high possibility, people will get hurt and die. And he didn't believe me. He wanted me to leave the country that day. He wanted me to leave the industry. But they came to a compromise and said if I was right, everyone on the site had to have a personal safety plan. If I was wrong, I had to go out of the country. 3 weeks later, 4 scaffolders were killed from a concrete lintel just falling through the lifting operations. The jib of a crane had hit the infrastructure and knocked a lintel and killed 4 scaffolders below. So they didn't do things right. So I was right. It's horrible. But that came from being able to read that data, that graph. So this data tells you also it's another form of feedback. It's why we give the guys graphical feedback about how well they're doing. And we can do it for different categories and so on. We also know, because we monitor corrective actions, and it's a very powerful metric, it's free, and that's basically the number of actions completed divided by the number reported multiplied by 100. And that then tells you where things are being fixed and where they're not in a facility. So, but we also know that when we do that through multiple regression, we know that will help increase the safe behavior by roughly 21, 22%. Just doing the corrective actions has its impact as well. So this particular set of graphs, the top one is the behavior. You can see the behavior change. This is 27 months data. So it goes from roughly 67% safe collectively and goes up and ends up in the 95, 96% safe region. There were 14 or 16 contractors from different countries, different nationalities. There were Bangladeshis, there were Pakistanis, there were Arabs, there were Filipinos, there were Malay, there was Canadians, Americans, you name it, 64 different nationalities on there alone. And the different contractors came in at different times to do different parts of the project. But we can see the variability. We can see that the trends in performance go up. So it's literally that reflects 47,000 people working on that site, building some super trains in Qatar. And then you can see the corresponding lost time injury rate, how as the behavior goes up, the injuries have come down. And there was a short period there where there were no injuries at all, and then it went up. But again, I mean, they got world records for what they achieved on that project, and they were officially designated for 2 years running as the safest facility in the world in the oil and gas industry at that time. So, but you can see the data. The data tells you a lot. You can use it. You can see the variability. And one of the things we've noticed, and we saw it in a hospital study where we were trying to get hospital infections out of the acute intensive care wards. And not only did the behavior go up, but the variability shrunk. And you also saw that in terms of the outcomes of the infections, the infections went down and the variability also reduced. So it's interesting when you start looking into the data. And then we've got claims of worth. Well, what does it do? And I won't go through all the references. They're here, and you can have this slide set afterwards, and you can look them all up. But claims of worth, behaviour-based safety does reduce injuries, and there's some studies to support that. It reduces unsafe conditions, and again, there's some studies that show that, and it helps reduce insurance premiums from the insurance companies. But it also increases safe behaviour, improves hazard reporting, improves corrective action completion, improves morale of the people who work on the facilities, improves communication between managers and the workforce, and provides a return on investment. So there's a whole lot of things that behavioural safety does that a lot of the safety profession worldwide is trying to achieve, but they don't know how. So all of the pretty much what the safety profession wants is there if you get it right. So it's executing the thing properly, which really makes the difference. So we also know in claims of solutions, we know that in static designs, you want daily observations, take a work group approach to your observations, use participative goals, engage with the people. That will reduce injuries more than other different designs. In dynamic settings, for example, construction, one-on-one observations with conversations are more effective. So we know the setting and the design interact, and you can see the data there. So, and a work group observation is where someone from the work group observe his or her colleagues and gives feedback to a group of people rather than just one. So it's a different way of doing it rather than just one-on-one with individuals. And this other one is interesting in the middle here with the observation focus. Some of the projects we've been involved in and some of the studies that I've looked at, they focus on the outcomes of behavior. So the site is tidy, change the hook back off the walkway, that kind of thing. On the aviation, on the airports, for example, you've got all of the different aircraft have different ladders and things. So you've got your tugs put away properly, and so it's more not looking at the behaviour per se, more the outcome of the behaviour. But that also helps reduce injury. So it's perhaps a bit more familiar with what people do when they do site observations. They're looking at physical objects, but it has an impact. So there's a lot of data here and a lot of things to take in. But in summary, the facts show that behaviour-based safety is supported by a very large evidence base that runs back to the 1970s. To understand the facts, we know that a safety partnership between the workers and managers and leadership focusing on problem behaviours and what's driving those behaviours works. We know cause and effect shows that this reduces the injuries and improves the behaviour. We know we get, in terms of the value of it, we get reductions in injuries, unsafe conditions, and so on, and the different designs. So this is just this last slide. There's a lot of people make claims about safety. They make claims about all sorts of things, not just safety. And this was a tool that I came across. Believe it or not, at my age, I'm still studying. So I left school when I was 13. I don't have any school leaving certificates. So I went back to university last year to do English as an undergraduate in a polytechnic, using online. And it was very interesting. And I came across this when this little framework, when they were looking at claims about people reading and not reading. America's got a big problem with most of their children. 75% of their children cannot read properly. 50% cannot read at all. So it's a real problem. So when people make claims about various things, this little framework helps. So I just applied it to behavioural safety. So I think it works quite well. But anyway, so now I open it all up to questions from anybody and anybody. They can ask anything they want, and I will do my best to answer it. I hope I've given you a bit of structure and some of the information to help out, you know? So
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much. You know, some of your histories, just of your stories, just I came into tears about library, for example, and so thank you very much.
yeah, my boss
Good.
wasn't pleased.
Yeah. So, dear colleagues, I have so many questions. I do understand how deep your knowledge are, and I'm really interested to go to read your articles. Um, so from my side, I let me start, and probably my colleagues will join me. So first of all, uh, as I said, so we started to learn probably, you know, some B-based training from the past, and they always start with 90% of all accidents happen because of human fault or human behavior. And of course, modern yeah, BBS doesn't say this. So, how do you answer politely to such people that they are sure that if they obtain such knowledge at once, so they are really right. So that's
It's
my
interesting. The 90% came from, I think it was Heinrich originally in
yeah,
the
something like that.
1930s. And then it was promoted more by DuPont as a marketing. Hey guys, 90% of your problems. Hey, come on, give us some money. And then I see it in the maritime industry. So I've been working with the maritime industry and Ukrainians in the maritime industry too. And there you see, or in a lot of documentation, 87% of the maritime problems are human error.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
okay. So, well, I'm one of those rare creatures. I look at this stuff and I go, is that true? So I have a very talented daughter who came out of university at the time that all the economy collapsed in America in 2008. And she was wanted to do physics, but then she'd switched to computing. And she said, Dad, I haven't got a job anymore. They've just closed 600, the department's closed 600 jobs. I'm unemployed. And I said, welcome to the real world. Okay, you can work with us if you want. And she looked at me and she says, really? So I said, yeah. She says, well, only for 3 months. I don't want to work with you all the time. Okay. What do you want me to do? I says, I want you to develop software so we can monitor people's behavior. And she looked at me and says, can I use Windows? And I went, if you must. Okay. So she did. And after 9 months, she was still with us after 9 months. We threw it away and said, this is junk. Why don't we use HTML and Java and what was the other one? I can't remember the name of it now. It begins with a P. But anyway, different language.
Hmm.
And within 9 months, we had something that worked. Okay. So then we've made it more and more sophisticated. But one of the things that we made it do, and it's called Peer, and it was on the beginning of the slide, the web address. But one of the things that we made it do was monitor human error. So when someone does an observation, was it human error or was it a behavior? Was it intentional? Was it unintentional? Okay. So when we've
Hmm.
monitored that, and then I did I do research on the data. And I think during COVID, I presented some of this data. And we came to the figure that the intentional unsafe behaviors was roughly 52, 53%. So it wasn't
Understood.
90. It was roughly from what we found. And that was from maritime, construction, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing. So it's a collection of all of that amalgamated together.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yes,
Dominic, can I
thank
also ask, Anatoly, so if you have opportunity to name only one skill or focus on one action, what is the most important for HC professional to provide behavioral audit, to work with behavioral safety behavioral of employees? So what is the key?
Ah, okay. So
Only one.
Well, that's very difficult because you can never have only one. You can't say that there's one behavior that if you fixed everything else would be great, because it's always context dependent. What's your industry? What's your location? What's your culture? What's your physical environment? There's too many moving variables. What I would say that in terms of behavioral safety, the key that unlocks it all is the feedback. Give people feedback and engage. That then crosses over when people ask me, because I write on safety culture. I'm a safety culture researcher, as well as a behavioral safety, as well as leadership. And when people ask me, how can I fix my safety culture quickly? And I'll say, safety leadership, employee engagement, and corrective actions. Follow up with the corrective actions. So as a safety professional, whether it's behavioral safety or just safety, are the leaders leading? Are the employees engaged? Are you following up with corrective action? And if the answers to those three questions are no, you've got a major problem.
Thank you. I absolutely agree. In my, I thought that communication, but I think your answer was more correct. It's feedback. So thank you. I really agree. And if I can translate a question from the chat. So which issues or questions of safety help to reach the goals and KPI of mission of company? And is it any like short way to reach it?
Well,
I know answers, but I want to hear
what
from
the
you.
mission of the company becomes the obvious question as the
Yeah.
start point. What I will say is the behavioral approaches are applicable to any area of human activity, not just safety. I have done this for quality. I have done this in the medical arena. I've done it in the food industry. I've turned recipes for food products into behaviors to always constantly create the perfect recipe so that the product is consistent. I've worked in the alcohol industry, make the spirits, wonderful stuff, I have to say. But we've been in there where we've used behavior. So I was in one, they have a bottling plant. So they make a product, they'll spend years making this product. They're distilling spirits. And then it goes into this, you have a big feed. So the trucks come up to the goods in, they give you all of these big cartons full of glass bottles. The guys take all of the bottles out, they put it on rollers, and all the rollers come in like this, and then it's all fed. So it then goes down on one little roller conveyor system. And as it goes round, it goes into one place where the product or the liquid is put into the bottle. There's another thing, it goes along and the thing comes down, puts a plastic plug in the top of the bottle. There's another thing goes to the next bit and it puts a metal cap, the screw caps. So it puts them on, crimps it, and then it goes into a labeling machine where it goes in and these big arms come out like this and this, and they put the labels on the front of the bottle and the back of the bottle. Sometimes in the labeling machine, the labels didn't go on straight, they would go wonky. So that meant when it came out and the girls and the guys are putting these bottles of product into the packing boxes to send to the customer, every time they notice there's a label wrong, they have to reject that product. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of money and time and effort. Yes.
Sure.
So I was looking at this guy. We walked into this place where this was happening, and I saw this guy, and his job is to take the plastic, take the metal cap off the screw and put it in a plastic bag. Gets a very sharp knife, digs it in the top of the bottle, pulls out the plastic, puts it in another bag, gets the bottle, puts it into a 45-gallon steel drum to recover the product, and then throws the bottle away and breaks the bottle. And I'm looking at that and going, how much did that bottle cost? How much does all of that cost? Why has that guy got a sharp knife and doing that, and that's unsafe? So I tracked the system from the one
Step
unsafe
by step.
label. I tracked the system till I got to the labeling machine. And then I look at the machine and I'm going, why is this going wonky only every so often? Why isn't it consistently being good? And then I looked at the feed for the labels. And if you look at the feed for the labels, they were like this. So I got two pieces of cardboard from one of the boxes and I tamped it this way and then I tamped it that way so that the labels were all aligned. And I stood back and watched. No problems. Everything was going through. Perfect. Okay. So there's a behavior. The guys are trying to unsafe to try and take the stuff out. There's the behavior of putting the labels in the feed. So if you concentrate on making sure the feed labels, we save that one thing, they told me, saved that facility $25 million a year.
Not bad.
I didn't get any percentage either.
Yeah, good step. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I suppose looking at number of how many participants we had, I suppose there are a lot of students who just study health and safety, and it's very, valuable. So um, that's why I would say so we have a future. It's
Okay.
our best, in your conversation, your what you said, very, very inspiring. So I'm more than sure that it's not the last our meeting. So I'm sure that we'll make more and more. And you are very welcome in Ukraine. And thank you for your support. It's
It's my pleasure. It really is my pleasure to put something back into your country. And as I said earlier, I am with you in spirit, if not in body. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, dear colleagues, thank you very much for your participation. So it's incredible. So it's very, very, inspiring opening of this year of
Okay.
Health and Safety Speaking Club.
I'll send you a link after this, and there's a link to an article that goes with that slide set, and I'll send you that too.
Please.
Okay.
Yes, we will share. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominique. It was
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Very
Bye.
nice to meet you all. Take care.
Very nice.
Thank you.
You.
See you next
Take
time.
care.
Bye.
Yes, inshallah.
Bye.
Good stuff.